Hey guys, Ernie here. Welcome to the Paleo Hiker MD channel. Today we're back in the workshop and we're going to take a look at this, which is a vintage early 1980s Coleman Peak 1 400 series stove. Stay tuned. Alright, so you guys have seen this stove on the channel before in a couple other videos. First video was just when I got it going. It hadn't been turned on in around 30 years. Got it going, seemed like it was no problem whatsoever. Then I had a little problem, was doing some testing, and the stove actually caught on fire twice. You guys can see the video on the channel about that. It was pretty hair-raising. Tried to figure out what was wrong. I took the stove apart. I took some advice from the internet. Actually shot some carburetor cleaner into the tank along with some of the fuel, and that seemed to help the flow of the fuel, and the flame was better. Now, on further inspection, and I'll show you guys in a second, I think the culprit was the fuel cap. There's some stress fractures on the inside and what looks like brass, and I was able to replace it with a new fuel can cover. So hopefully that will solve the issue. So let me show you guys what I found on this. Alright guys, I'm sorry, my microphone is causing problems, so I'm just going to talk without my remote microphone. Now y'all can see right there the stress fractures pretty clearly, and I didn't notice this initially, so I think those allowed some of the fumes to escape, and that caused my fires. Alright, so I'm going to take y'all through a little tour of this particular stove. It runs off of Coleman fuel or white gas, so it's a little bit different than any of the other propane-based stoves that I have. And it's a very common design. It has a place to put your fuel in right here. On the front here, it's got this little nozzle which controls the gas on and off. Sorry for that rattle, that's just this top thing. Controls the fuel on and off. On the back, it has, you can see this lever on the back. One side is for clean and off, low, and then for max or light. That's what you put on to light. And then the other major part of this particular system is this, which is the pump. This is how you actually pressurize these stoves. Fumes is actually pressurized, and that's what comes up through the top. You can see as well that this has a preheat tube right here, and that's what allows these types of stoves to work very well in adverse conditions, in particular very cold conditions. Similar to my Covea Spider, this has a very clear preheat tube, comes across this way and goes all the way across in the flame and up to where you actually control the air and control the flame. Comes with these little feet, which is very handy. It also comes with this aluminum case. This particular stove, as I've said before, was from my father. I believe he bought it in the early 1980s. Similar stoves are still sold today. I was, as I mentioned, able to basically tear it down, clean a lot of the parts, and put carburetor cleaner into the tank, and I think that really did open up the fuel tube quite a bit. So what we're going to do is quickly just boil 2 cups of water like I do on a lot of the other things, and hopefully we A, don't have a fire, and B, get a pretty good result. So let's see what we get. Alright guys, here we are in the backyard. That little red knob is the on and off, and this backside sliding knob is to control the airflow or the flame control. Directions say initially to pressurize the system with 15 or 20 pumps. That's what I'm doing here. Once you get that initial pressure in the system, you can turn on the red and just put a flame to it and it'll catch. Now initially it catches here and then it kind of snuffs out on me, which has happened a few times, but I can still hear the gas coming out, so I just used the flame and eventually it caught for me. Now I did read on the forums that it's very important to preheat this stove. If you preheat that very well, it can combat some of the gunk that may be in that tube and stop any of the fires like I've seen. Here I'm just putting a little bit more fuel into the system, a little bit more pressure. So here I'm pretty happy with the blue flame. I'm going to crank it up to high and put my 2 cups of water to boil in this old school aluminum pot that I also got from my dad. Sped this up pretty good for you guys, but you can see that it works pretty well. I was very pleased not to see any flames anywhere other than where they should be. Alright, we're pretty much at a rolling boil here, and I stop it at 6 minutes 27 seconds. That's how long it takes to get 2 cups of water to a boil. Okay, so a successful test, successful on 2 counts. First, we did not go up in a blaze of glory. We did not have a fire. So I've burned it several times with the new cap. I'm more comfortable with it. I'm not sure that I'll ever fully trust this stove after the 2 fires that I had, but maybe over time I'll finally get to the point where I'm not worried about it bursting into flames. I do feel pretty comfortable that those little hairline cracks in the seal of the fuel cap are what caused my problem. Second of all, we got water to boil. We got a fairly long boil time of 6 minutes 27 seconds. Now, I think that a couple things could contribute to that. First, it's pretty cold outside. The water was very cold. I was using an aluminum pot. I used this just for nostalgia's sake. This is the same kit that my dad would have used with this particular stove back in the day. I do think this particular stove would also benefit from a taller windscreen. I'm not sure what kind of technology they had around back then, but to me it seems like if we could control those flames and stop them from going so far up the sides of this particular pot, or even a smaller pot, which we use these days, would probably be even worse. Most of it would go around the outside. I think that would help by putting a windscreen. So essentially 6.5 minute boil time. That on my testing compared to about 3 minutes for the jet boil, and for a remote canister stove like the Covea Spider, very in line. 5.5, 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, somewhere around there depending on ambient temperature, water temperature, etc. But nonetheless, a good test. So this video isn't about recommending a stove. This is a vintage stove. I just thought it was something pretty neat. I got it to work fairly well. I think it's pretty reliable, and that's exciting. I've gotten an education quickly in these vintage stoves. I've gotten on several forums. There are complete forums about vintage camping stoves. So it's been pretty cool. I've got a lot of my advice from those, in particular on this model. So appreciate you guys watching. Hope y'all found it kind of interesting just to see what some of the older technology would produce. There's no question this stove is heavy. We're not even going to weigh it. I'm just going to tell you it's heavy. It's not ultralight to say the least. But back then it was pretty cool technology, and from the standpoint of being bulletproof and functioning, this is a great stove to have as an emergency stove. It's easy to store a lot of this fuel wherever you store your other preps and stuff like that. And from what I've found so far, the fuel lasts a long, long time. It does not burn a lot of fuel. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate all the input. Any comments would be appreciated here on the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and look forward to more videos with you guys here on Paleo Hiker MD.